Welcome to the Aaron Harber Show. I'm your host, Aaron Harber. In our continuing series with members of the Colorado General Assembly, I have three august members of the House of Representatives. Joining me today, Joe Salazar. Joe, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And from the Jeffco County of Jeffco, Jefferson County, Justin Everett.
Thanks for having me.
And do you have any other counties in your district?
Just South Jefferson County.
Okay, great. And veteran of the program, Angela Williams. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
It's always a pleasure. Angela, tell me, when you look at the 2016 session, what do you hope to accomplish, and what do you think are going to be the big issues? Why don't we start off with that?
Well, I think that in the 2016 session, one of the issues that I'm constantly approached on is construction defects, and I'm sure you've heard a lot about that, Aaron, around Denver in the last couple of years. What do? We have a lot of cities who are saying it's actually hampering building efforts for condominiums in Denver and in our state. But on the other hand, we also have to look at affordable housing, and it is a very complicated issue that we have not been able to solve at the legislature, and I think it will come up again, but I'm not convinced we'll do anything different at that time also.
Now, tell me why you don't think there'll be progress made, because the issue basically is the way the law currently is written. The builders in condominiums in particular have extraordinary liability for construction defects. So you have one side saying, hey, you're not seeing a lot of condo construction. We need condos. It's a much more affordable housing option for people, and it's not happening. Some municipalities are taking the issue in their own hands and changing their regulations so that the burden on builders isn't as onerous as it is today. On the other hand, you have certainly consumer rights people saying, hey, if you build a building properly without defects, you have nothing to worry about. So what's the issue that's left?
I think that, number one, you bring up a good issue around liability, and the liability, which is raising the cost of insurance for our builders. I think that's one issue I hope that we can solve in the 2016 session. But we do want our builders to be able to build a quality product, but I think this is the world, and like everything can't be perfect, but how do we build as much of a quality product as we can? Because some things, like where you have movement in the foundations because of the bentonite here in Colorado, those are just some things you can't predict. But at the same time, we need to have consumer protections in case that foundation shifts, and we need to be able to rectify that. So it's a pretty strong conversation on both sides, and we need to find our balance to solve that.
Yeah, I think my sense is builders are saying, hey, we're willing to, and we provide quality products. They're more concerned with the process of how do you address problems. They're not saying let us off the hook. They're saying make the process one that's more reasonable. So, Justin, what are you hoping to accomplish, and what do you see as the big issues? Those may be two separate subjects.
Well, I think the overreaching issue this year is going to be the budget. I mean, I think Kick and Looper is proposing a $27 billion budget. When I came in 2013, I think we're at about $22 billion. So you're looking at an increase of $5 billion over 3 years. However, somehow we don't have enough money. So any bills that are proposed that are related to the budget, or are they going to cost something as an extra regulation, we have to look at that with a microscope and say, can we afford it? And somebody needs to be the adult this session and say, look, we just can't afford it. And sometimes we just have to say no. And I know a lot of my legislators have a hard time saying no.
When you look at that $5 billion increase in just a relatively short period of time, how much of that is state money from taxpayers here in Colorado? How much is it federal money?
Most of it's state money. I mean, you're looking at, that's where the growth is. So both the general fund and obviously what we get from all the different ways that we funnel revenue into state government. So, this is our money to spend. At the same time, it's still the taxpayers' dollars. So we have to be good towards the taxpayers' dollars, and I'm not sure we have been over the last couple sessions.
With that increase, even with that increase, we're looking at potentially refunding some of that money to taxpayers because of Tabor, and the governor is saying you're looking at potentially significantly higher tuition rates in colleges, not enough money for K through 12 education, not the kind of funding that our roads need. How do you balance those challenges? What's your sense of what we should do?
Yeah, case in point, we've increased the budget $5 billion. I mean, the money is there if we wanted to. It's just about making priorities and figure out what we want to fund as government. We're obviously that's a 20% increase over 3 years. Have any family budgets increased 20% over the last 3 years? Government's a special entity here. So we got to look at government like we do our family budget, and I don't think we've been doing that.
All right. Joe, how about you? What are your priorities, and what do you think are going to be the big issues in the 2016 session? And by the way, you each are welcome to jump in and comment on each other's priorities and prognostications.
Well, I think that I agree with Representative Everett that we're going to be dealing with a lot of budget issues, particularly with cuts in K through 12 and higher ed. As we know, we are setting ourselves up for failure because of the cuts that we are making to K through 12 and higher ed. I think that we're going to be dealing with, one of my bills will be Homeless Right to Rest Act, which I'll be bringing back from last year. And I think we'll also be addressing police and community trust issues again. We're seeing, after our very successful session last year and passing a number of bills, we're still seeing that we have some problems here in Colorado with community and police trust. So we'll be bringing some bills with respect to those issues.
Let's talk about, oh, go ahead, Angela, please.
You know, one of the things I want to ask you is what I see is that we did have a very successful last year in which we passed these police reforms. We see what's going on across the country. We've seen what's happening in our own state, and we want to be in front of that. But I'm starting to realize why we've been successful as we do a lot of the data collection right now. I think the state is in denial about collecting that data so we can truly understand what's happening around police shootings, what's happening around racial profiling, and I think that's going to be a big issue that we're going to have to get our colleagues in the state to overcome so we can get the data, because as you know, we have been pushed back on to say, well, you don't have the numbers to prove it, you know, but you know it's happening. The community says it's happening. We have the arrest rates, but when we move to collect that data, we get pushback from certain entities within the state to say, well, they're still in denial. And I don't think they want to collect the data that we need for the state of Colorado. What do you think?
And tell me, what kind of data do we need? And then Joe, please comment, and Justin as well.
I mean, one of the bills that we had in an interim committee that we just finished, because there was pushback this session from racial profiling. And so they said, well, do an interim committee, let's study this. Well, we went through we had, 4 or 5 meetings, and we spent a lot of taxpayers' money to the end of the day to go to e-ticketing to collect profiling data, right? And it would be very convenient. It would have cut the times down, and it would have brought more efficiencies to our police who are out there on the beat doing traffic stuff. And it was denied. It was killed.
How would e-ticketing work?
What e-ticketing does is right now, if you get pulled over, you know, the police write out a manual ticket. It's like a handheld. All the data is in a handheld, just like your iPhone. And I actually I spent the day with the police and watched this system happen. And they just actually drop down screens. You put why you pulled the person over, what they're tagged, did they have their insurance. There's a drop down screen that says race and ethnicity. And the great part of that, the accountability, is that you can't move on to another screen unless you have filled out all the forms on this data, and then it just uploads to a system.
And as a driver, what do I get? I've been pulled over, which of course never happens to me, I like to say. So I get pulled over, I'm going to get a ticket. Do I get a physical ticket at the time?
You do, because what the officer has, they have a little printer in their cars, and it just ticks out a little ticket, and it's probably about this big.
Well, and why would there be any resistance to moving into the modern technological era, do you think?
Well, being down at the Capitol and seeing we're slow to move on technology, it wouldn't surprise me. However, you know, that's just government moving at the speed of government. But I think the big issue here when it comes to law enforcement, I don't think it's a liberal or conservative issue. I think it's a citizen issue. So we always talk about big government. Well, that's big government at its finest, is when you get down to the law enforcement level. And, you know, Joe Salazar, actually, I think all 3 of us were on the bill, one of the bills last year on law enforcement reform, to where on the rare occasion where the police officer violates your civil rights and you have to defend yourself in court, we want to make sure that citizen was made whole. Unfortunately, and Joe Salazar and I were the co-primes on this bill, and unfortunately that bill made it out of committee and then was called back in and killed because law enforcement got cold feet. But how can you not want to make a citizen whole when a police officer has actually made a mistake? And so if you're basically having $30,000 or $40,000 in legal fees, you know, a lot of us can't afford that, especially us at $30,000 legislative salary, to defend ourselves. You know, Joe and I have the advantage of going to law school, but still, that's time out of our day and time out of our pockets.
Or the millions of dollars you see cities paying out as of these egregious misconducts.
And that's probably the biggest concern that I have, is that we have So many municipalities paying out huge sums of money. In fact, I believe that there was a jury finding of $400,000 against the city and county of Denver for beating a person who was sight impaired. They beat him pretty bad. At some point, we got to get to a point where we say, you know what, we have to start collecting these data. We have to start curbing this behavior because this is costing us an awful lot of money, and we really need to find a sweet spot with law enforcement where they can finally start accepting some of these changes that need to come, because that helps with building the community and police trust. And now look at this. I mean, we have, very conservative member of the House of Representatives and very liberal members of the House of Representatives, and we agreed on many of the bills, including the Citizens' Right to Record bill, which he was also a sponsor of, in order to stop this behavior.
All right, well, we're going to take a quick break. And the city of Denver, if you also include the Sheriff's Department, you're talking about tens of millions of dollars over a number of years that have been paid out. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with our panel.
For information on how to help promote civil and mutually respectful discourse and support expansion of the distribution of our programs, please email info@harbertv.com.
Hi, I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. For information about the program, who our upcoming guests and topics are, and ways you can participate, please go to our website. That's harbertv.com. And most of all, thanks for watching.
I'm Mary Robinson, former President of Ireland.
Hi, I'm Jim Cameron, Director of Avatar.
I'm Christina Johnson, former Undersecretary of Energy.
Hi, I'm Oliver Stone.
Hi, I'm Mike Peters. I'm the creator of Mother Goose and Grimm.
Watch The Aaron Harber Show.
I would encourage you to watch the Aaron Harber Show. It's good fun.
Watch the Aaron Harber Show because he's a really cool guy.
Please watch the Aaron Harber Show, on which I do appear.
I want you to watch the Aaron Harber Show. Grimmy watches it every day.
I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. You can follow the show on Twitter and find us on Facebook to get all the latest updates, see behind-the-scenes photos, and make comments and ask me questions. You can see episodes before their TV broadcast, so like the show today.
Your opinions, ideas, suggestions, and criticisms related to guests, topics, questions, or the host are welcome. Please send an email to producer@harbertv.com.
Welcome back to the show. We are with Joe Salazar, Justin Everett, and Angela Williams talking about the General Assembly. So, Justin, I mean, one of the things that's interesting, just watching how you all interact, which is certainly fascinating and entertaining to me, in terms of cooperation. So tell me a little bit about how you see things at the Capitol.
There is a lot of cooperation and collaboration. So, case in point, I'm ranked one of the most, if not the most conservative legislator in the legislature, both in the House and Senate. And, to my left and right, they may be on the opposite extreme. But the fact of the matter is we've all sponsored bills together. So there is that collaboration. And then you have that weird Venn diagram when it comes to civil liberties, for example, where you have sort of the constitutional conservatives overlap with what I call the ACLU Democrats. And we say, you know what, when it comes to citizens, we're going to put citizens first. So a lot of people see the partisanship. And, on the big issues, of course, we're going to stake our claims, whether it's guns or the life issue or what have you. But on a lot of the issues, we do get together and we do agree. Case in point, I think I had the most no votes in the history in the legislature, and I think I had more no votes than yes votes, and I think Angela had 3 no votes all session. But as we discussed earlier, we were on some bills together because there are some places where we can actually see eye to eye and get something done.
I mean, Angela, you have a great reputation for reaching across the aisle and building, coalitions and collaborating. But, is that difficult, or have you found it easy to do?
I found it easy to do, and I think because of my background coming from being a business owner, that issue, I always tell people, that issue, it's not Democrat, it's not Republican, it's not black, it's white, it's green. Right? Everybody wants to make money, right? And it's so important that we grow businesses here in the state of Colorado. But as Justin said, we're here to serve at the pleasure of the people. And I believe at the state level, all change happens on a local level. And sometimes we will go to our corners, but if we are focused on what we need to do for the people, and you can bring people together from different backgrounds, from different parties, and we can come to a solution for the greater of the people, that's what I'm about. I'm about, bringing people together and making sure we're doing what's right for the people of Colorado. And I find that fairly easy as with my voting record, as Justin said, and working on the business committee. I think that helps. And working hard to build those relationships is important.
So how have you found it, Joe?
I'll give you a good example. Representative Tate brought a bill last year to wipe away the duty to defend provisions that we see with various municipalities. Basically, if you're a contractor and you want to have a bid or you want to get a contract with the City and County of Denver, you have to promise to defend the City and County of Denver against any of the negligence that the City and County of Denver engages in. Really weird aspect of the law where I'm going to create some negligence, but you have to defend me. Representative Tate brought this bill on behalf of contractors and said, we have to get rid of this provision. He brought the bill to Judiciary Committee. There was concerns that it wasn't going to pass out of the Judiciary Committee. And I sat down with Hispanic contractors and I said, how can we get this bill to pass? And we set up this process during committee to ensure that the bill would get through, because I brought the contracts that the City and County of Denver wanted everyone to sign. And I said, look at this provision. This is unconscionable. And so working with Representative Tate, we were able to get that bill through committee 100%. Got through unanimously, and it also got through the House of Representatives.
Did it get signed into law?
It did. And had we not worked together, then that provision would still remain in the contract with the City and County of Denver and other municipalities.
And I think Joe makes a very good point, bringing people together and working. Sometimes we find ourselves, particularly for me, myself, trying to strike that balance between business and labor. And there's some of the biggest bills that people have said to me. You may recall when I did the bill for labor, the AFL-CIO, what we want to do is increase the number of doctors. And we just thought business was going to go ballistic on that, Pinnacle, like that. But in working together and bringing labor and business, which I've worked very hard, we have great working relationships. And again, I think that helps us do the work for the people of Colorado.
Here's another example. The NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, is something that both Republicans and Democrats find to be repugnant. Basically, it allows the federal government to co-opt our local law enforcement. And this is something that has been something that's been dear to my heart as well as to Representative Everett's heart to stop. We don't want the federal government co-opting our local government. And so every year for the past 3 years, I believe it has been, every year we have brought bills or sponsored bills or co-sponsored these bills to stop the NDAA from being enforced here in the state of Colorado. I imagine it's going to come up again, and I'll be a co-sponsor on that one too.
Or red light cameras. Red light cameras is a good bipartisan bill. It deals with civil liberties issues. And, it passed out of both chambers. Unfortunately, our governor didn't sign it. But that's a very popular bill among citizens. So I'm sure you'll see something on red light cameras and photo radar next year. And I'm sure it will pass out of the legislature again. And the governor's going to have to make that choice to veto it or not.
What changes could you make to that bill which would make it palatable to the governor?
There was the voting provision, which was also a bill that I think came out. So, whether the municipality can vote to get rid of it, that might make it more palatable. I'm not sure anything might make it palatable to the governor, but I'm sure he'll get a couple bills on his desk, and he'll have choices on what he can sign or not sign.
Well, my experience was I came, light was changing color. I decided to try to stop. It was turning red, so I slammed on the brakes. No one was behind me. It was like 6 a.m. in the morning, and I was able to come to a stop, but my tires were on the white crosswalk. Of course, there was no one around. Everyone was still asleep. And I'm sitting there, and suddenly I see a flash, and I'm thinking, wow, that photo radar must be broken. I need to contact the city and tell them that at 6th and Lincoln or whatever it was, this thing isn't working. I get a ticket, a month later, and it's a $75 fine. And I had no idea at the time that, it's one thing to go through a red light, but you make an effort to stop and then you get a ticket. So I'm all for your bill.
This would be a great moment for you to come and testify in the legislature about that particular issue.
Share your story, Aaron.
I'm always welcome to help. so.
Absolutely, and then the due process aspect of that as well. I mean, normally when you get a ticket, when you get a moving violation, you have the right to defend yourself. Well, here you're just getting a computer basically printing out a ticket for you where you don't have due process. I think, it's a constitutional violation. I mean, you're looking at some unconstitutional acts that we have here in the state of Colorado that we need to get rid of.
All right. Well, on that note, we'll take our last break and we'll be right back.
For information on how to help promote civil and mutually respectful discourse and support expansion of the distribution of our programs, please email info@harbertv.com.
Hi, I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. For information about the program, who our upcoming guests and topics are, and ways you can participate, please go to our website. That's harbertv.com. And most of all, thanks for watching.
I'm Mary Robinson, former President of Ireland.
Hi, I'm Jim Cameron, Director of Avatar.
I'm Christina Johnson, former Undersecretary of Energy.
Hi, I'm Oliver Stone.
Hi, I'm Mike Peters. I'm the creator of Mother Goose and Grimm.
Watch The Aaron Harber Show.
I would encourage you to watch the Aaron Harber Show. It's good fun.
Watch the Aaron Harber Show because he's a really cool guy.
Please watch the Aaron Harber Show, on which I do appear.
I want you to watch the Aaron Harber Show. Grimmy watches it every day.
I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. You can follow the show on Twitter and find us on Facebook to get all the latest updates, see behind-the-scenes photos, and make comments and ask me questions. You can see episodes before their TV broadcast, so like the show today.
Your opinions, ideas, suggestions, and criticisms related to guests, topics, questions, or the host are welcome. Please send an email to producer@harbertv.com. Welcome back to the show. This is our last segment in part one of our two-part series with members of the General Assembly, Joe Salazar and Justin Everett and Angela Williams. So, one of the things we were talking about, collaboration, where really philosophically there's some huge differences among members, yet you're obviously able to work together. So, give me your take on that, Justin.
Yeah, I mean, my voting record shows I'm, again, arguably the most conservative member of the legislature, maybe more conservative than anyone that's ever served. But at the same time, I mean, you look at Angela and Joe up here, and we get along great. Absolutely great. I mean, Joe and I, Joe's kind of a comedian, so am I, so we have good times laughing, and we've made a point to, develop that friendship since we came in, and Angela as well. I mean, we ran a bill my freshman year, Israel bonds, and so I got to know Angela, and she's a pretty dynamic legislator. So people think it's like Congress, to where we just are battling, R versus D, R versus D, R versus D, and maybe to the chagrin of some of your viewers, it's not like that. We actually get along very, very well. And some of the stage acting you may see in the well or in committee is a lot of stage acting. I think someone once said the reason why people go into politics is they weren't pretty enough, except for Angela, of course, to go to Hollywood. And so a lot of it's sort of staged and so on and so forth. But behind the scenes, we're all pretty good friends.
So, Angela, what about that contrast, and what do constituents, what do people tell you when you're in the General Assembly? Do they see you as a member of Congress, as it were?
Well, I think sometimes we at the State House get unfairly labeled as, some people really think we are Congress, that we're their congresspersons, and we're not. But yet at the same time, what's happening in Washington, right, which is so, polarized right now, that sometimes gets passed to us at the state level, and I think they just group us all into one big bucket. But as Justin said, yes, we're legislators, yes, we're politicians, we want to get on, everybody wants to fight for their issues, and the issues are the same, but they might affect our districts differently. And I think people have to realize that. Everybody wants a good education for their kids. I mean, I represent Northeast Denver, where the resources are low, teacher retention is high, where in Justin's district, that might not be the issue, but education is still very important to him. So when you see us debating, and sometimes we do fight, but we're just fighting for the people we represent. But at the end of the day, I think we still go back and we say we got to do what's right for the people, and we find those compromises.
All right, I'm going to hit some specific issues. I know we don't have an infinite amount of time. Mental health. It seems like everyone recognizes, the need to help people seems almost infinite. And Justin, I'd be really interested in your perspective because, I mean, this really touches on all kinds of individual rights and personal liberty. Do we have a problem addressing issues related to mental health, and what should the state's role be?
Well, it's an excellent question. I mean, how much should government be involved in mental health? It seems like government has taken extra steps, at least since I've been down the legislature, and many years before I was down there, to get more involved in mental health, where maybe it's more of a private issue. You've seen mental health issues become more public, and I'm not sure that's good.
Angela, what's your take on that?
I think, mental health.
I think there's probably some disagreement, maybe.
Well, mental health clearly needs to come to the forefront, and I think there's a lot of efforts to do that. But I think as people, we need to realize that it's alive and it's well, and it just doesn't happen with certain sectors. I mean, look at all of the gun violence that's happening across the country. I don't think mental health has any particular way you describe it, because I think, we need to be able to recognize those symptoms early. It happens in our youth. It happens in communities of color. It can happen with our elderly. It happens all over. But I think Mental Health of Colorado and Mental Health of Denver are doing some great things in our communities to help recognize it, so that if someone may have maybe some mental challenges, that we don't alienate those people. They need our help the most. And I think that's some of the things we need to look at the state, and we need to be investing more in mental health.
Joe, what's your take on what needs to be done, if anything?
I have to agree with both of them. I think that it is a private issue, but it's also become a public situation. We have to figure out what we're going to do about this. The government is about the health, safety, and welfare of its citizens. And so when we have mental health issues affecting the health, safety, and welfare of citizens, then that's where we need to figure out how can we help people out. At the same time, we have to balance out with a person's individual and private rights. I don't have the answer for that. If I did, I would bring a bill. I just don't. We're looking into it. I know that a number of bills have been brought to help out with mental health issues. We have the Safe to Tell for students. If they feel suicidal, they can call Safe to Tell. Or if they recognize a fellow student who is suicidal, they can contact Safe to Tell. But I don't think that goes far enough. We need to have more mental health counselors out there to help individuals out.
So how would we fund that?
That's always the biggest question in the state of Colorado, isn't it? I mean, we have Tabor, we have Gallagher, we have Amendment 23. We have so many mechanisms that stop us from being able to service our citizens in a proper way. I just don't have the answer to that one either until we start addressing those particular constitutional provisions.
Does it make, one of the things, and Justin, I'm going to let you have the last word. We only have a minute left. One of the things Tabor provides is the option for people to propose, for example, some type of revenue resource to help address those issues, make the case to the people, and get that kind of support. Is anyone willing to do that? I know a lot of people in elected office say, oh, we can't do that because Tabor forbids us from doing it. But Tabor doesn't forbid anybody from doing anything. It's just that it puts the burden on a proponent to convince the majority of the voters to do something different. So Justin, give me your take on this.
How we opened up, you're looking at $5 billion increase in just 3 sessions since I've been down there. So if mental health is a priority for the state, we can make it a priority for the state. The money's there, so every time I hear politicians saying, oh, we don't have the money, well, where do we spend that extra $5 billion? A 20% increase in the budget over 3 years with Tabor, which is supposed to be this major restraint on government, but still $5 billion, B as in boy, dollars. So the money's there if we want to spend it on mental health or education or whatever.
All right, well, Angela is smiling, but we're out of time, so I'm going to let her have the first word in part 2 of our 2-part series. I'm Aaron Harber. Thanks for watching. Make sure you watch part 1 and part 2 with our special guests.